All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to For the Record. It's a conversation series presented by Grey Matter where we talk to music heads about their stories and the music that makes them. Hello, Rocco. Great to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Um, uh, we've been having conversations for the past few years, but I do have a feeling that I'm going to learn some things about you that I didn't know, which I'm excited about. And as always with this, I'd like to start at the beginning, just get a sense of you and where you're from and when your relationship with music started.
Um, oh, that's a deep one. um, Probably from when I was born, right? Like, music is almost like the silent thread to everything I've done. So, but yeah, I was born in France and then I grew up in Spain. So I would say I'm from Spain, but I'm actually not from Spain.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. And I've been living in the States for now, what, like 14 years, uh, in the Bay Area, different places, but mostly a little south of San Francisco, about an hour away, a little town called Santa Cruz, kind of little surfer town, college town, and beautiful nature. So yeah, and I've recently just moved to San Francisco, and this is a new experience, partly because of music and
Mhm.
trying to get closer to music. So you know, yeah, music plays a big part in my life. So yeah, I think in terms of when it started, it probably goes way back. I mean, when I was a kid, um, I have artist parents. So my mom
Mm,
is an artist, not a musician, but a visual artist. So
mm,
she always play music at home, and kind of very bohemian, great taste, and always listen to the radio while she worked in her craft. So um, there's a very good Spanish radio, Radio Tres, and very culture centric, and you always learn so much about new music, and amplifying smaller voices, and
mm.
independent artists, and not just like pop, right?
Right.
Um, so so I learned a lot through that, and then probably my own story with music started when I was like a teenager, like most people.
Hmm.
Um, Probably earlier, really honestly. I mean, but actively pursuing it and learning it, and you know, grab a guitar and just try to learn how to play, and then got into DJing, and all of that with raves, uh, and so that was the deepening into like the electronic music world,
Hmm.
and yeah, hasn't stopped ever since. So taken different forms, and now professionally. So yeah.
Cool. Do you have early memories of listening to the radio and like any of the artists or music that you heard early on that was just like, oh damn, this.
Yeah, of the radio, not so much. I mean, maybe I can think of, you know I remember this one artist, and this was maybe when I was like more in my teenage years. um Her name is Najwa Nimri. She's a Spanish artist. She's an actress as well. I heard she's a handful to work with because I have some
Mhm.
people that work with her. But incredibly talented and
Mm.
just very polyphacetic. And yeah, when she had her first album come out, they would play it in that Radio 3. Um, my mom also would play a lot of world music,
Mm.
like African and Brazilian, and
Mm.
Cesaria Evora, and like just you know uh, so I was exposed to a lot of range,
Right.
um
Right.
and yeah.
When you were playing guitar, learning to play guitar, diving into music a bit, as a teenager, did you start a band? Did you ever envisage like being a DJ or being, being a music maker?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we didn't start a band, but we had a little group of friends,
Mm,
and they had this one good good friend who was also learning guitar at the same time as me, and then there was this other extended group of friends who were quite good. There was
mm,
a bassist and who's now a professional musician, and went to school for it, and then another friend who was a guitarist. I think it was the son of a member of the Eagles or one of these
oh,
like 70s bands. And yeah, and he's also, he has a studio in Berlin, and also he like made that his profession, Grammy winning guy. And yeah, we would tinker around, and we all had similar taste in music. So it was, for me, I was like the Red Hot Chili Peppers head. I
mm,
was like, it's like obsessed with them, and like
mm,
so that was our like connecting spot. But there was others at the time. The Smashing
mhm,
Pumpkins and Rage Against the Machine, and but it
mhm,
was also at the same time as the Prodigy, and like all that melting pot of music, and also Tricky, and it was that
mm.
kind of era of you know I feel like a great era of music, Massive
Yeah,
Attack,
I
and
was
like
just thinking that. It was
you
great.
know it's just so Portishead, and like
Yeah,
all those
100%, yeah.
all that great, but at the same time it was also Goldie and Ronnie Size and all those you know you know just drum and bass and rave heads, and yeah, it was a great time.
Cool. I'm curious. I mean, I know you as a designer and as a music label owner. And I'm curious, from a design perspective, how inspired you were by your mom, who is a visual artist.
I mean, very different styles than what I'm inspired by, but like she's definitely super influential in my life. We're very
Mm.
close, um, and I think she makes lamps, so that's her
Oh, cool.
art form, and very modern, and sort of um, uh, a beautiful sort of interior design eye. She always had that, and decor at the home was always really beautiful. So um, definitely inspired by you know her knowledge of culture and art, and design in general. But I think my style is a lot more influenced by music, and
Mm,
uh, you know, DIY labels, and electronic music, posters, and album covers, and all of that world, which is a little more urban, and sort of
mhm.
distressed at times, and graphic designy, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, but they're definitely in my home aesthetic. I'm much more like my mom. So
Mhm.
I have tons
Got
of her
it.
lamps around, and the soothing nature of her style is kind of like what I want in my space to
Mm,
create. It's not so much like,
mhm,
I'm not one of these artists who like has a ton of just like gadgets and busyness around them, and that's what they need to create. I'm
mhm.
quite the opposite. I'm like a Zen space, simplicity, and then let the creative thing be what I'm engaged in. So
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, that makes a lot more sense to me as an artist as well, to leave space, around you so you can, with your art, fill it up. Um, yeah, I mean, at what point did you see this path, for you as a career at kind of the intersection of design and music?
I think I must have been like something like 27 or something like that, and like, I was kind of going through a bit of a one of the many crises, I suppose, and trying to figure out what to do. I been working since I'm 14, so I did all kinds of things, right? I was doing a lot of event production at the time, and music festivals and things, um, and yeah, I think it was my partner, and wife, was asking me, just working with me to like figure out like, what are you really passionate about, like what is your and it was like definitely music was the one that surfaced, and it's like, well, go do that, just
Mm,
go do that thing. So from then onwards, it was kind of like figuring out how do I make what I'm passionate about um my what I do day to day, right? So I think I've always had much more like a stronger um tendency or talent for art. Used to paint murals, and it was involved in visual art from since I was a kid. So music was always more something aspirational that I
mhm,
loved to do and that I liked, and I was engaged in. But I'm not one of those like super talented musicians that just picks up an instrument and is like, oh, I can play it. I have friends like that. So yeah, so I was like, okay, I'm good at this, art thing. What do I do with it? And then and then so I was like, I'm gonna go to school and learn some graphic design, and it was like to help me in my mural business. And that just I got enamored by it. And at the time I was like very inspired by design work that was coming out of record labels I was following. Like there's this record label that I think they closed now. They're called Project Moon Circle
mm,
they're in Berlin, and the guy is also a designer. The guy that runs it, this guy Gordon, I forget his last name. And all their work, all their vinyl, just gorgeous, right? It's like stunning illustration and artwork and package design. So I was very inspired by them, and then also Erase Tapes
mhm,
was very interesting to me, and there was a few others, Ghostly, and a few others that I was like really inspired by, and I was like, what if I have my own label?
mm,
What if I was inspired by the creation of the artwork, and then my good friend, I have one of my closest friends. Um, I know him since I'm like 3 or something. Um, he's super talented, and he plays the piano, and sometimes like he'll play me, like he'll call me and like do a piano concerto for me, just
cool.
him so that kind of sparked the idea. So it was like a combination of like I'm trying to find myself professionally, and then my friend is like this very talented diamond in the rough person I want to support. Um and and so all of that kind of happened around the same time. And yeah, so it kind of took me in two different directions. So at that time I sort of started working at a record label here in San Francisco, a world music, sort of eclectic record label called 6 Degrees Records. I was doing their design, art direction there, and website and stuff. And then I also started my own label. Um, you know, kind of learning as I went with them, and applying some of the learnings. And then that kind of kept me going professionally, and I then moved over to where I am now, at Universal Audio, doing more design stuff, and now leading the design team. So yeah, 7
Cool.
years, yeah, into the label thing.
Yeah. Um, I'm curious when you started your own label, um, as it sort of grew and took on a life of its own, growing out of these different things in your life coalescing into a single point. Like, how did you think about the identity, of the label, both from a design perspective and then like who were the artists that you were hearing that you wanted to involve, potentially add to the roster? Yeah, and how did you go about cultivating, that ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think in terms of the visual identity and all that was a bit of like iteration, and I made a logo, and so I thought about the name, and what I wanted it to feel like, and did this whole exercise of like visioning, and what could this be, what is this for and about. And I think like most good things, they start in writing.
Hmm.
So for me, I need to put the ideas down first. They generally start in the in my head, or in the inspiration, and sometimes is it mine, or is it something I sort of like listen to and like pay attention to. That's a interesting question about where does inspiration come from. But then putting it down on paper helps me make them concrete somehow,
Mhm.
and so that's where it kind of started. I had a pretty clear sort of set of inspirational sources that I wanted to feel like that. So like I mentioned, those three labels were sort of key in thinking about erase tapes, which is more like a modern classical label from London. They also do electronic music. I really liked their aesthetic
Mhm.
and some of their, the way that they bridged, modern classical with electronic. So I thought that was very interesting. And then Ghostly International from New York, and I think origin from Michigan. That also, they've been going at it for a long time, and aesthetically very interesting, and also just eclectic and adventurous, right? And like what they put out. So not like after you've been listening to electronic music for like 20 years, you want something different because it can
Mhm.
get pretty formulaic. Project Moon Circle on the kind of down tempo, eclectic beats as well, but very interesting the visual as well. And then also Ninja Tune, big inspiration. So if you look at all of these four labels, that none of them have like you can't pin them down, right?
Hmm. Mhm.
Easily. They're not like, oh, this is a house label, this is a techno
Right.
label. They'll put out all those multi-genre, they're more like artist focused. So
Mhm.
for me, it was always about focusing on a project by project. And like I had this good friend, like I mentioned, um, that that was that was the first one I have one, right? Start with one and then figure out from there.
Right.
So I started with him. We recorded a piano little EP, um, and yeah, and it was nerve wracking to put anything out because I think with anything, I don't know, maybe that's been your experience as well. With anything that you do that diverts from what you've done before, there's also like the perception of like, how's my close network gonna feel about this?
Yeah.
Are they gonna understand it? Is it and then how's the world gonna receive it? Like there's a lot of like question marks, and you have an idea of how you want something to do,
Mhm.
um and you might the experience of like ideating and creating a product or a cultural artifact, object, or whatever it is, uh, versus seeing it out in the world, and once it's out of your hands and into the world, like how that you know interacts with a series of factors. Right? Once it
Mhm.
gets out there, it can be um, how the timing of it is, how how you market it, um how people pick it up or not, how the algorithm treats it or not. Like there's so many things that are out of your hands, that I always say music is not uh getting from zero to one, like putting an artist out, like with my friend. It seemed like it was his first thing, but he'd been doing it for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the 0 to 1 is a longer
Long
step
journey.
than the 1 to 2 and 2 to 3,
Mhm.
and so on. So I encourage it. Like I think if you have a project or an artistic endeavor that you want to put it out in the world, I think you should, even if it's daunting, and because you learn as you go. Like
Mhm.
that's the other thing, is like um putting out records. I had an idea of what it was and what it meant, and no idea about a lot of things that if I maybe had that idea, I wouldn't have done it.
Mhm.
So but I'm still glad I did, right?
Yeah.
I'm still glad I did because I learned a ton. Like the label allowed me personally a platform to investigate, the aesthetic identity and just have more free range. Because when you work for a business or a client, you have their constrictions to contend with. So this was a very free space. I had a very clear vision of what I wanted it to feel like, um, but it allowed me just more creative reign, and a lot of it has been, responding to what's been sent to me as well. Like I'll get a demo from somebody that I wasn't aware of. I sort of like set the tone for what I wanted, and then who I wanted to work with. There was some, close connections, and then a lot of it has been like just people coming to me.
Mm.
And then I tend to have a policy of, if it's good and I have the energy, I'll put it out. Uh,
Yeah,
right.
that seems right.
Yeah, which is maybe a terrible business decision, but
Well, people make too many creative decisions based around business, as it is. It's a necessary evil, I guess, in a lot of ways, but I appreciate when you can, when you make decisions that aren't rooted in the bottom line.
yeah, indeed.
Cool. Um, yeah, that definitely resonates. The discomfort of putting things out there and having no idea what's going to happen. It's really an important journey. As you said, it's like an incredible way to learn, and maybe like the only way to actually learn a lot of things. At least like moving from the theoretical to the practical. Um, and yeah, also as you said, like it's an excuse to do these things. Like it gives you a framework and and like an umbrella to like like gray matter, like the Crate Coalition. It's the reason we're having this conversation right now, and it's
Right.
just it's an impetus to do something, so um yeah, it's uncomfortable but also like really rewarding at the end of the day.
It's a journey, right? And it's part of your journey. And I think creating something and putting it out in the world, whether that's you know a record or a company,
Hmm.
or you know it takes a lot of courage. And and most people just stop at the point of, like, right at the edge of that,
Hmm.
and they don't
And
put it out, and
yeah,
and then it's like, well, you don't get to learn all those things, and uh you don't get to fail,
yeah,
unfortunately. And you learn a lot. At least I learned a lot from mistakes. It's tough. It's definitely, not for the faint of heart. And if you prefer to stay in comfort, that's totally okay as well, I think. But
yeah.
it is very rewarding journey of see where it takes you. I mean, for me, Subtempo, um, I've got to work with incredible artists. Like, I got to work with people that I completely admired, and got connected with them through somebody else that I admired, and got to work with. And and I feel like the success is in those little stories, more than in the finances or how the business did or didn't do, right? It's more
Mhm.
just like, wow, something that I had no idea could happened. And then we've got this work that's out there that wouldn't have happened without, you know me taking that courageous step of putting it out there and saying, I want to do this thing, right? Like that, connecting those two artists and saying, here's the source material, go remix that. And people connect with it, and just the one person that comes back and says thank you, or there's a repeat customer, buys two records, like, thank you, it's like that fills my soul.
Mhm.
But you also have to have time for it. So, I think, and that's the crossroads I'm in right now. So
Yeah. um well, at that crossroads, it seems like like a good segue into part two of this conversation, where we talk about other things that you like to listen to and how you discover music and things like that. And that's actually the first question today. How do you discover music?
Um, today, right now, I listen to a lot of music, generally speaking, right? I consume a lot of music
Hmm.
um, for the label, and had a podcast a while ago, and just DJing and just as a collector, right? I'm exposed to a lot. Um, but recently, I have been going through a big transition in my life, so moving house, and so I haven't had that much time, which has been interesting. So I do what's easy, and Spotify is easy.
Mhm.
So I tend to go there for filling the need. Um, and and I discover music through there, through curators that I trust. Like for example, Ghostly, like I mentioned, they have a series of playlists that are very good. Or you know, um, I tend to stay away from like the generic Spotify playlists that they put out. Some of them are really good, but we can sort of try to stay away from that,
Mhm.
and go directly to the artist who has a playlist, or the label that I know has a playlist, and probably find those out through social media, and then kind of follow them. So have my sort of go-tos that work well, um, and then also have my own sort of saved, that when in doubt, just go there and I select some things. And yeah, and so it's when I go through these periods of transition, it's happened a few times in my life. Like um, I tend to kind of go back to the roots, a bit, like for me, my friend has this saying, is like, once a dub head, always a dub head, so I kind of come back there, as a resource, sometimes. Like I just recently was listening to Rhythm and Sound, and if you're familiar with them, they're like a basic channel, which is more like a techno side of, they had this dub side as well, Berlin musicians, and yeah, just dub techno. It just always fills the space, and
Fills the void.
fills the void. Yeah, yeah, that's the most recent one. Mhm.
Cool. Um, and what, if you remember, is the first album you ever purchased, and then what is the most recent?
Oh wow, first album I ever purchased. Huh. Um, could have been like a Red Hot Chili Peppers, but it could also be Massive Attack. I think it was like around then. Um, I got probably gifted Pink Floyd. My mom gave me like a Pink Floyd, the Dark Side of the Moon, one, or yeah, one of those. And yeah, that must have been like my first sort of like one that I owned.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Man, that's a good first record to own, I think.
Yeah, yeah, all of them really. And the last one I purchased, I haven't purchased music in a while because streaming, and um, let me think, in a few years. Um, I I bought some stuff from this artist called Barker. He's like
Hmm.
a he's like a Berlin electronic musician. Quite interesting is like he does, it's like almost like techno, but without a kick and bass. It's almost like
Hmm.
a everything but that. So it's very rhythmic,
Uh-huh.
and the sounds are very well crafted. It's incredible. So I bought a couple from him. I think that was the last thing I bought on vinyl. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Um, and then who are three artists of note that you've discovered in the first that you've heard for the first time in, the past year or so?
Three new artists.
Yeah, they don't have to be new artists, but three artists that are new to you.
I have to look, man. It's been an interesting year in terms of that. I think there's this one. I've been in a bit of a, you know for as cheesy as it sounds, I've been in a bit of a soapy kind of pop
Hmm.
opening for whatever reason,
Mhm.
and there was this young girl. Let me check. I think her name is Haley something. And she's super talented. And she's basically blowing up um, at the moment. But yeah, she just does these loops and kind of records it very R&B
Mm.
sounding. Um, Let me see if I have it here. Like songs, I think it is. Yeah, yeah, so much good music. I mean, some of these are not new artists. They're I've discovered them, but they've been at it for a while.
Yeah, that's all right. Those count too.
Those can too. Okay,
Yeah.
let me check. Yeah, so there was this uh Any, ENNY, also in that kind of R&B tune as well. Um, yeah, I've enjoyed her. Um, Haley Knox, so with a K.
Mm.
That's her name. Um, and yeah, man, so much good music. I think a lot of this stuff is that I've been listening to is like I said, very very pop. This guy is also incredible. Also on the R&B tip, um, James Vickery. He has a, I don't know if you're familiar with this platform called Callers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they do these like video recordings of like an up and coming artist that in
Mhm.
this colored rooms, and he's like some guy from the UK, I think London, and just the voice. I mean, it sounds like a woman almost. It's like just super, just emotional voice. So I've been
Mm.
in a bit of an emotional tip, as you can tell from these
Yeah.
artists.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, no, I love colors. I need to spend more time with that community. They do, yeah, some incredible curation and feature some incredible artists and just have a really cool brand as well.
yeah, it's so simple, right? Just
Yeah.
paint a room with one color and just pop a mic and have them
Yeah.
go. But a lot of people that sort of have a color show then go end up
Yeah.
being huge.
Yeah.
They'll do their first appearance there, and then they end up being huge.
Yeah, it's become kind of a launch pad, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, kind of a bit like Red Bull Music Academy was at the time as well. It's like a lot of people that would go through that would end up just becoming, very well known. So,
Yeah. Or even like an NPR Tiny Desk,
right
concert or something like that.
now,
Uh,
that's more of a status thing, right? Like if you
yeah.
get to do that,
Yeah,
it's
it's
like,
become bigger. Maybe like a KXP, like show or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, here's the big one for you. You're going to a desert island and you get to bring three records with you. What are they?
That's all right. I'm 3 records. My recency bias is like
That
kicking
happens.
in strong. I've been really enjoying the new one by Sampha. I could
Mm.
just listen to it all day. But that's not a Desert Island record, probably. Oh man, that's a hard one. That's
Yeah.
a hard. 'Cause then you're stuck with those three.
Yeah, I mean until you're rescued, but you don't know if or when
Uh,
that's gonna happen.
or if it's gonna
Yeah.
happen. um, yeah, good question. Oh, man, that's hard. It's really hard. I think
Yeah.
that's what's the hardest about curating a label. And I think some people are maybe less like that, but I have such a varied amount of taste. It's like I like all genres, all spaces, and so it becomes really hard to just narrow it down. Been really enjoying uh, Fred again. Um,
Mm.
yeah, uh, some of his, I think he calls them like real life something. He has a series, and they're like little snippets, and those are really enjoyable, end to end. So I could probably choose one of those.
Mm.
Maybe Sampha, and see if there's another one that I always return to. Um, it's hard, man. It's hard to say.
I mean, it's truly an impossible question, and that's kind of the point. Is just like which three pop into your mind first, because
Yeah,
you're gonna have to leave things
yeah.
behind.
I think I'm gonna go with a Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic, or something
I
like
love that
that.
one.
Like,
So
yeah,
it's a
just
great
have
record.
to just take one of the classics.
Yeah, that's a good choice. Um, cool. Well, you made it through. It wasn't too painful, I hope.
It was good. It was good. It's good to reflect on these things.
Yeah. Um, for those who, who are listening, Rocco, like who are interested in getting involved, checking out the label, et cetera, where's a good place, for them to do that?
Anywhere, all the socials is Subtempo, SUB, and Tempo, one word, and also subtempo.com as the latest.
Cool. And last but not least, now that you've been through For the Record, who is another music head that comes to mind that we should have on the show?
Oh man, so many. Um, you know, I think my I have this friend, well, not friend, but more of like a collaborator for the label. His name is Robert, but it goes by Robert Koch. Um, and yeah, he's an incredible musician and artist, and um, you know, yeah, my head just goes to the people that I that I'm involved with, but yeah, James Drake's amazing.
Hmm.
Talk to him if you can.
Yeah.
Um, in the UK, there's Synchro, who is just incredible. He has a record shop as well. If you can get on with him, he's incredible.
Cool. Yeah, I love those. Good starting place. Uh, um, yeah, cool, man. This has, been great. I did indeed learn some things about you that I did not know. So I'm grateful that we had this time. And thank you for your energy and, for your reflections. Really enjoyed the conversation, Rocco.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, man. Take care.
All right. Thank you. You too.